Get on the floor. Pull up your pants. Get real low. It's a Get Your Job dance. What up, homies? Now, I know what you're thinking seeing that kind of title. You're thinking, oh, Musi, that's an awful move. Hold on now. Quitting your job? What? That's outrageous. The next video you're gonna make is gonna be at a homeless shelter. That's where you're gonna be living if with moves like these, Musi. First of all, nuh-uh. And second, everyone else is doing it. So yes, I did. I quit my job. It wasn't 100% my choice. I was kind of strong-armed into doing it by my employer. It was kind of a get quit or be fired, or be quit, get fired. So basically that just means no more full-time work for me as of right now. Of course, I do have a plan. I have been kind of preparing for this for a little bit, and I have kind of lucked into a good situation, but I'll get towards that towards the end of the video. Right now, I kind of just want to talk about the whole situation in general, the job market in general, everything. Just everything in general. I just want to generally speak on all topics. This certainly isn't the only time I've ever quit a job, and definitely not the first time I've quit a job where I didn't have another full-time job lined up, you know, immediately following it. And I'm sure the same holds true for countless people, especially nowadays. If you haven't heard, there is something called the Great Resignation going on right now, which is basically absurdly high numbers of people leaving jobs to pursue either better jobs or just find better work-life balance with maybe a part-time job, or just trying their own ventures, going on their own path, maybe starting a business. And a big cause for why so many people are leaving their jobs is just because the job market, the labor market in general it has just become so skewed against the employee. The employee has been getting shafted more and more over the years, with being compensated much less, employers just having more power over the employees, work-life balances being completely thrown out the window for many positions across the country, and just generally companies and corporations making billions and billions of dollars while paying their employees that are making that money for them, that are the front line, paying them pennies on the dollar, fractions of pennies on the dollar that they make for the company. So this entire generation, myself included, is just tired of the low wages, the little to no work-life balance, and just generally being taken advantage of. I quit my current job, and my biggest hope is that I will never have to go back to being full-time employed by anyone ever again other than myself. The world of the employer and employee dance has just grinded me, and I'm sure millions of others, down to just absolutely want nothing to do with the labor market anymore. Of course, a lot of people out there share the same sentiment but are not able to quit their job because, you know, it's their one source of income, and that's hard to let go of, even if you know for a fact that you really wish you could. I just know that as the labor market stands right now, I don't think I'll ever be happy as an employee, and I'm sure many other people can share that sentiment. I've just become too jaded to find happiness in a career anymore. I started out as the type of worker that would be the first one to clock in, last one to clock out. I was always trying my best to be the best employee I could be, because obviously that's what people are told to do in order to get a leg up in the world, to get into higher positions, get better pay. So I volunteered for the overtime, I worked the weekends, I decimated my work-life balance, and I kissed the thick booties of the management and all that, just to try to get myself somewhere in my career. But honestly, all that ever got me was just taken advantage of. Example, I worked at a audiovisual installation company, installing, you know, AV systems and equipment and on a large scale throughout the country. I traveled for work a lot. I traveled every single week. I took, you know, a ton of overtime. I worked my tail off to try to get jobs done as quickly as possible. And I was trying to be, you know, everything I could be. I even went home and I would study and take courses on the more intricate details of the job and specifically the department that I wanted to go into, which was actually designing the systems. I would go home and I would take courses to try to learn that side of the business, because that is the career I wanted to take, the career path I saw myself going down. So I'm working 60+ hour weeks. I'm out of town for weeks on end, traveling for work, doing my best to study in my free time. So that goes on for a few months, and then eventually a position opens up for basically a beginner role in the department I was dying to get into. Like, this would have been the perfect first career step in the direction I was wanting to go into. And when I got hired, I even let my bosses know, the bigwigs, that that was the career path I was wanting to take. That is exactly where I want to go. And they knew that. They understood that. I made sure to let them know that I was even doing extracurricular stuff outside of work to try to move myself towards that goal. And of course, when that position opened up, who do you think they gave that position to? If your first guess is me, you've kind of missed the point of the video. No, they gave it to the guy whose dad was friends with the head honcho of the company, of course. Of course. How nice of him to pull such a favor for a friend of his. That's so sweet. So I got shafted there, and not too long after I just said, you know what, screw it. I started working less hard. If I'm not going to be treated with the respect I deserve and given reward for all of this extra effort I've been putting in, then what is the point of putting in this extra effort? And eventually I just left that job because there wasn't anywhere for me to go in that company. And here's another fun example. Later in my career, not too long after that one, I basically worked for a mega church, like a legit mega church, one of those huge chonky churches that you see on TV. I was basically not the head honcho, but the guy under the head honcho of the AV department for like live events for the sermons and stuff and all that. I basically ran the soundboard. I helped set up all the equipment and whatnot for different events that was going on at the church. Well, my title was the AV event manager or something along those lines, but I was only a manager in title only. I did not oversee anybody, any workers. I didn't manage a team of any kind. And the reason they gave me this title, this meaningless title, was because oftentimes if you're a manager, if you're legitimately a manager, you are what is considered exempt from overtime, which means that you do not get paid overtime hours if you work over the 40 hours a week that you typically would expect in a full-time job. So their intention was to simply call me a manager, despite the fact that I was not managing at all, but they just did it so that they didn't have to pay me overtime, so that they could work me to the bone, work me all they wanted, and not have to worry about paying that sweet time and a half for those overtime hours. And of course, I wanted to be paid fairly, make sure I was getting my fair due. So I looked into it a little bit just to make sure, since I was working so many overtime hours and not getting the overtime pay, I looked into it and found that there were definitely certain specific criteria that a position had to meet in order to be considered exempt. And for the management position, I had to be overseeing at least 2 people, I believe it was, in order to be classified as exempt from overtime as the, management role. And I think there were a few other criteria that I wasn't meeting for that specific exemption status. So by law, I was not able to be considered exempt from overtime. The employer is not able to just decide who is and isn't exempt from overtime just based on their title alone. So I brought this up to my boss. I brought it up as cordially as I could. I said, look, this is my concern. This is where I'm getting my information. If you want to take a look, maybe I'm misunderstanding it somehow, but I'd just like to talk about it and, see if we could figure out a solution to this, because, I want to be paid fairly. I'm sure that's, a reasonable thing to want. So I didn't want to cause any problems. I knew it was kind of a touchy issue for a lot of companies, but I wanted to be sure that I was paid fairly, and I was certain that we would be able to find some kind of, middle ground or some kind of way to alleviate the situation pretty easily. Well, come my next work day, my boss tells me to meet up with him when I arrive on campus, and I go ahead to him, and he's like, we're gonna go meet with the financial overseer guy. I forget his exact title, but he basically ran the finances for the church. And so we went into his office, and basically the second I sat down, they told me that I was getting laid off, that I was being let go. And at the same time, they confirmed that I was correct about the overtime, because they said they would pay me the overtime I was owed for the hours worked, over 40 hours. So I was right. I was fully 100% correct. I was owed overtime pay, and they simply didn't want to pay it. And as soon as I started asking questions, out the door. Get out of here, you're fired. So just moments like these, throughout my career, crushed my dreams of, me pursuing a career in the AV industry, because that was what I originally wanted to do. That's kind of what I went to school for, and it's what I was striving for. And it just made me realize that I'm not willing to play this rigged game to try to get myself into a career that might not even bear any fruit down the line. As hard as I work and as much as I try, sometimes, you just get shafted because the game just didn't want to work in your favor. And I know I'm not the only one who has stories like this. The labor force at large has been just getting taken advantage of more and more over the years. And I'm fully in support of this great resignation. I think it's a great thing. I think we desperately need something to shake up the labor market and to put more power into the employees' hands. So basically, moving forward, my plan is to pursue my own ways of making money. And that will be through my own business ventures. One of those businesses being my little outdoor movie company, Orange Outdoor Movies. It's basically, I do a big screen setup, projector, sound system, all that. And, people hire me. I come out to their place, whether it be a residential location or a business location, set up the screen, play whatever the movie they want to see, or, anything like that. And then I pack up the equipment and get paid and head out. It's a pretty cool gig. I enjoyed doing it. Business had been pretty few and far between up until about a month or two ago. But luckily, right before I decided to quit my full-time job, I actually managed to land some regular business in that, and I've actually been able to get a somewhat regular income from the business, so that has been immensely helpful and a massive confidence boost for me. Now that I have some regular gigs going on, it's put more confidence in me that I can keep growing it, at least enough to where it can just be like a thing that'll make me a full-time job's worth of money. And while I'm doing that, I also just picked up a part-time work-from-home job, something easy and simple just to make sure the bills get paid. And with the remaining time that I have each week, since those two things don't really take up all that much time each week, I plan on just focusing on building other streams of revenue and just trying different things, building myself up, improving myself. I've been considering learning to code. I've been wanting to experiment with maybe other business venture ideas. I've been considering writing maybe a niche ebook that I could sell on Amazon, and then maybe writing more stuff and seeing how being a little righty boy goes. Maybe make a podcast on a niche topic. Just kind of experiment and see what kind of things I could create, what kind of things I can do. But I will say I've immensely been enjoying the freedom that I have with my time now, considering that I don't have a full-time job that basically dictates my schedule. I've also been doing things like exercising more, cooking myself nice and nutritious breakfasts and dinners every day, reading a little more, and practicing the guitar and piano a little bit more. This is like the kind of thing I wish I could do all the time. Have a couple hours each week dedicated to making money, and then spend the rest just living my life. And it's just been putting me in a much better mental state too, to where I can better tackle the question of how else can I make a living now. And of course I still am streaming, I'm still making videos, and I'm still making music and stuff. And of course it would be immensely incredible if any of those things took off in a way to where they were making me a regular income that I could live off of. But streaming, making music, videos, that stuff is just so luck dependent, and I just am not fully confident in my skills and talent as a content creator to say that I would be able to get to that kind of level. So I just don't see it as something that I really want to pursue necessarily. I would like to, continue doing them as I currently do them, which is as a hobby basically. And if they happen to pop off in a big way, that would be incredible. That would be awesome. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because like I said, I treat it as just a way to have fun. But all that being said, if you're someone in a similar position who's debating on maybe quitting a job, or has quit a job, or isn't able to quit a job but really wants to, I'm sure that's most people, let us know in the comments. Kind of share your story. Us little wage slaves got to stick together, you know? We got to support each other somehow. But if you are someone who's debating on quitting their job and whether or not it would be worth it for you, I would say be safe and do what feels best, but go at whatever you decide as hard as you can. You only get one shot at life, and you might as well take a risk here and there. You never know if it'll pay off. But other than that, that was kind of my story. I quit my job and I'm officially underemployed. But I'm going to try to make the most of it. I want to escape from wage slavery, and I want to make something of myself that I can be proud of, and that I can do something to better the world in some way. And I hope you're able to do the same thing too. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys around. Take care, everybody. Love you. Mean it. Peace out.